I gotta tell you, I'm really encouraged and energized by all the people showing up. This is great.
Nice.
We are at 3:01. I'm going to give it just another maybe minute or two before we officially get started. People need to log in and get their audio and stuff connected. But I'll just go ahead. I will mention this maybe one more time, but just as a general, I'm sure many of you have been doing a lot of Zooming, as I have lately. If you haven't, that's fine. But it will be helpful if people can stay muted most of the time. And we'll get into some, we'll let you know how we're going to try to keep the participation effective and productive. But we want to hear your voices, but at the same time, we are recording this, and it'll be helpful for us if most people stay muted most of the time. And I see that almost everybody, wow, it's like everybody's perfectly knows what they're doing. So that's great. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's sort of the elephant in the room. But thank you very much for being here after a very eventful yesterday. I don't think we have time to go into that down that rabbit hole at the moment. But I speak for myself. You know, it was not a normal day. It was very lot going on. So I really appreciate everybody still being here. We're glad that we were able to follow through, and I think it is the right thing for us to go ahead with this. You know, and not delay any further.
So the key question is, how late did you stay up?
The whole way.
Whoa! I quit at 2:30. Okay.
All right.
I'm looking for a couple of key folks that I don't see quite yet. So I'm gonna hold, just stay in. We're gonna keep circling the runway for just a little bit longer here. Okay.
All right.
Welcome. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm seeing two frames for you, Nicole. I don't know if you're seeing any indication of that on yours. Let me see if there's anything I can do on my end here.
I was gonna say, I just see everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I see two as well.
I'm gonna, Nicole, I've got, like I say, we've got a lot of participants, and I want to try to preserve the screen space as we're doing a recording. I'm on the other Nicole Roth frame. It actually does not have the video. It just has your name. I'm going to remove that one. If you are somehow removed from the meeting, please just rejoin. I apologize if that happens, but I'd like to try to just have one frame for you, if that's okay. So I'm going to try to remove.
No worries.
Okay, looks like it just took that one away, and you're still there, so that's good. Okay, well, 3:04, and again, I'm hoping for some other folks to join, and there's one of them right there. It's always a high wire act, right? To like, I gotta walk the line between getting started and waiting for people to show up. And some of you know what I'm talking about. You've been here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think I will go ahead and get started. If others show up, I will repeat things if I need to, and I hope everyone can be patient with that. So welcome. We're just thrilled to see so many folks here. Grant Johnson on behalf of LVA, and my colleagues are on the call, Katie Delahanty and our Executive Director, Christian Anderson, and also lead artist for the project, Liz Richter, are all here. You'll get better introductions as we go. I'm just wanting to give a kind of a really 30,000 feet overview of this project and how we've gotten to this point. And then the session itself is about moving it forward through this community listening session. So when we first started, it really was an idea that came from Liz, and she's gonna give you a really nice picture of that. And the idea was to bring an public artwork to the Clifton neighborhood that specifically and intentionally embraced the blind and visually impaired community as a primary audience. And I'll tell you, the first time I heard about it, it really challenged me to think about how we might do that. But the more I thought about it, the more excited I've gotten, and that excitement has just continued to build. And so we have spent most of 2020 raising money for this project, and we are a good way there. We're more than 70% of the way to our funding goal for the project. And it has been necessary to get those funds in the pipeline in order to be able to begin having events like this one. And this really is kind of the rubber meeting the road in the first significant way. As all of you probably, well, I should say all, or make assumptions, but as many of you are probably aware, a big project like this does involve some conversations that have to happen as we go. And so there have been some conversations where some ideas have begun to assemble, but I really want to foreground the fact that this is a community-based project in the sense that the input we get today will come alongside whatever has already kind of come into the mix. And our decisions are going to be driven by what people want and by what people need. Who are the stakeholders, who are the participants, who are the audience, who are those who will live with this project on a daily basis. And that's, as you all probably know as well, that's a lot to kind of keep that productive and keep it focused. And that's our challenge, and that's why we're doing this, and also another session in early February. So again, I don't want to go too much into a description of the project. Our artists will do that. Katie will help to kind of flesh that out a little bit too. But just to say that today is about hearing from people who care about I guess the two primary themes of this project are embracing the blind and visually impaired as an audience for a public artwork, and also about celebrating the Clifton neighborhood. And again, we've got some ideas about how we're going to do that, but that's what's going to happen today, is that those are going to come into more clear focus. They're going to expand, they're going to combine, and I think that's going to drive a lot of excitement as we go forward. So with that, and I'm kind of looking here, I do want to just a couple points of order. We are recording. If anybody would not like to have their image recorded, please just use your name only if you'd like to do that. And then we have actually also had a request as to whether or not at some point we could take a snapshot of the screen as a way of just kind of capturing the people who are here. And again, I would just do that on my end. I would just do a screenshot of this gallery view that I've got on my computer. If you do not want your image on there or your name, just let me know, and you'll have a chance to turn your picture off or leave the meeting before we do that. I think we'll do that at the end. That will, I think be a nice thing for us to have in terms of kind of sharing about the project as we go forward. But I just want to make sure everybody knows that I'll give you an alert. I'm not going to do that secretly and then surprise you with the fact that your picture and name are someplace that you don't want them. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Katie Delahanty.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm Katie Delahanty. I'm the Outreach Director for LVA. I am hoping that we can take this moment to introduce ourselves, our name, and what brought us here. I'm going to give you an example, so you're not just thinking of any random thing. I'm Katie. I'm tonight's facilitator. I'm here because I believe in inclusiveness and community input, and to be a support to the artist Liz Richter during this process. So raise your hand and Grant will unmute you as we continue.
Actually, let's do this. I'll just go through my screen and I'll let people know when it's their turn. Is that okay? I think that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to go to Liz next. Okay. So go ahead, Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm the lead artist for this project.
Okay, Mike O'Leary next.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
I'm Michael Leary. I'm the president of the Clifton Community Council.
And I'm going to go to Bill. Please pronounce your last name, Bill. I'm going to mangle it.
Excuse me, Bill Leeshoff. I'm on the Clifton Community Council along with Mike O'Leary. And we've had some interest in obviously a mural and the design in the area. So that's the background.
Christian Anderson next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Anderson. I'm the new executive director for Louisville Visual Arts. I'm here to support Liz and Katie and Grant for all the work that has gone into this. And it's a great chance for me to get to hear what the community wants. You know, I came here from out of town not that long ago. So not only is this an opportunity to build something with community stakeholders, but it's a chance for me to get to know a community even better. So I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm looking for duplicate names here that are going to cause confusion, but I don't think we have. So Kristen next.
Hey there, I'm Kristen Falkirk. I lived in Clifton previously, and I also had studio space in Clifton, and I still am in love with the area. I live in New Albany now, and I happened to see Liz at a mural workshop last year, so long ago. And I just got really excited about her mentioning this project. And so I'm really excited to be here. I'm actually a ceramicist, by the way. I make ceramic tiles. So hopefully that'll be applicable.
I think there's a lot of exciting potential, and we're glad that you're here. John Roberts.
Hey folks, I'm John Roberts. I am currently the assistant director for elementary schools for Jefferson County Public Schools for Special Education. And I'm also the vice president of the Kentucky School for the Blind Charitable Foundation, which is providing half of the funding for this project. And I've been behind this project from day one over a year and a half ago when this first was just an idea that Liz had, and have been a huge champion of this. And I will also act as the liaison between this project and the board to bring information back as they report back to them. And this is thrilling to see this many people. You know, only a handful of people have known about this project up to this point. And so now I finally feel like it's, you know, taken off. This is very exciting.
Michelle Brown.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Brown, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky School for the Blind Charitable Foundation. And we are very, very excited about partnering with all of you for this project. As John Roberts just mentioned, we've been working with LVA for several months on this initiative, and we are very happy that it's taken off and looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
And Brett, I don't see a last name, but you're next on my screen.
Yep, I'm Brett Owen. I'm an art teacher at JCPS, and I'm really a really big fan of Liz's work. And I thought this sounded like a really cool project that I wanted to volunteer with. So.
Thank you. Yeah, Andrew Tucker.
Hello, I'm Andrew Tucker. I'm with Curtis. We are the team that will be helping document what we anticipate will be a really incredible project alongside Liz and Katie and Grant.
Councilman Bill Hollander.
I'm Bill Hollander. I represent District 9 on the council, which includes Clifton, and I'm very excited about the project.
Rob Gillen, LVA board member.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rob Gillen. I am the Special Programs Coordinator at the American Printing House for the Blind. Among many things I do, I actually run an international art contest for artists who are blind. And I work very, very closely with individuals who are blind or visually impaired, who are either employees at the American Printing House for the Blind or who are guests to our facility. Our company is a national company that creates products for people who are blind or visually impaired. I've been very excited to know about this project and to be of assistance in any way I can. So I'm very excited about this.
Sarah Lindgren.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I am an arts administrator with the city of Louisville, and have been so lucky to have great partnerships and get to work with Liz and Katie and with LVA in the past. So I'm glad to support this all-star team and a great project. And I'm also a resident of Clifton. I'm on Pope Street, so even more excited about the project.
Casey Chalmers.
Hey, I'm Casey. I'm creative director at Curtis, and I'm going to be working to help document in a sensory inclusive manner this project and share both the project and the process with the public, art lovers, and potential funders as well.
Joanna Miller.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna. I'm a resident of Clifton, and I'm also the Director of Education at KMAC Museum. I've worked with Liz Richter for many years and frequently with the Kentucky School for the Blind and some of our residency programs there. So I'm looking forward to helping as an individual artist that lives in the neighborhood and whatever the museum can do as well.
Nicole Roth.
Hi everyone, my name's Nicole Roth and I am the Administrative Director for the Kentucky School for the Blind Charitable Foundation, working very closely obviously with Michelle. And that's about it. And needless to say, I've been pumped about this project since John first brought it to Michelle and myself. So.
Carla Ruschival.
Hi, I'm Carla Ruschival. I am the treasurer of the Kentucky Council of the Blind, and I am very much involved with the Greater Louisville Council of the Blind, and I'm pleased to be asked to participate in this. We are especially interested in accessibility issues related to this project.
And I think it's Meg Stone. Is that the right last name?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Meg Stone. I'm a former teacher, outreach consultant, and outreach director from the Kentucky School for the Blind. And I'm currently on the board at the Charitable Foundation. So I'm very interested in the project, excited about it. Lots of former students and friends that live in the area that will be able to take advantage of this. So thanks for asking me to join.
Thank you for being here. Ted Madden.
Hi, my name's Ted Madden. I am a neighbor. I live on State Street. I work for GBBN Architects as a designer, and I've followed Liz's work on Instagram for quite a while, and it's just something that I thought I'd reach out and try to participate in. It'd be helpful. Thanks.
Jesse, I don't see a last name, but you're at a tender moment there. I appreciate that.
Yes, I'm Jessie Forst. I'm a JCPS employee. I'm a diagnostician for early childhood, and I have 11 years experience in the early childhood world as an educator and a resource teacher for special education. And I was connected with Liz through a mutual friend, and I love the Clifton neighborhood, although I don't live there. I've been involved in the Children at Play Network with Bernheim Forest, and we offer play facilitation in different communities around the area. And I am really interested in how this can be a sensory experience for the visually impaired and blind, and just really excited to help support Liz and her project. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Vetter.
Hi, my name's Brad. I'm a graphic designer and letterpress printer, also a Clifton neighborhood resident, and just as of a few months ago, I now have a building that houses my studio and maybe eventually a gallery on Frankfurt Avenue. Clifton neighborhoods.
Kyle Etheridge.
Kyle is the assistant to the District 9 office, and she has told me that her microphone is not working.
Okay.
But she's taking notes, and I know that she's enthusiastic about the project too.
Well, thank you for being here, Kyle. Jackie Pallison.
Hi there, I am also with Curtis, and I am very excited to help document the process of this project. I've worked with Liz on and off for years, and I'm always excited to see what she does next.
And last but certainly not least, Terry Turlow. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, thank you. You did. It's Turlow.
Turlow.
I'm a resident of Clifton. I am blind. I'm the vice president of the Kentucky Council of the Blind, and also by training, I'm a psychologist. I'm still licensed, but I spent the first half of my career in that field, and the second half, I'm a retiree from the American Printing House for the Blind, where I did a lot of educational research. And so I'm very interested in this project, and I think I can offer some knowledge of how persons with visual impairments perceive, particularly when we look at how sighted folks turn 3D into 2D and what that's like for blind folks. And I think that's really fairly pertinent to this project, because you guys are probably going to be trying to depict a 3D piece of art in 2D. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm just going to say briefly before Katie takes it further, I couldn't be more encouraged by the pool of talent, expertise, perspective, investment in the community, investment in the purposes of this project. I think it bodes very well. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, I echo that. Such a great group of people and heavy hitters in lots of different ways. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Liz Richter, who is the individual who brought this project to LVA and has really conceived of it herself. We have been collaborating on this with her to help it get elevated to the level that she would love for it to be at. And one of those ways that I find Liz to be so amazing as an artist is that she really listens to community input. And this entire meeting is part of her exploration of that. So without further ado, Liz, we would love to hear more about you.
Hi, and thank you, Katie. Wow, this is just so surreal for me. An idea that I formulated walking down the streets of Clifton, to now see all of these people, you know, with excitement about the project and ready to sort of dive in and start the conversation. I'm just really, really thankful to have all you in the room at the same time, figuratively at least. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm going to try to go fast because I don't want to take up too much time with this, but I have over 10 years of experience in community art and art education. I've been a resident of Clifton for over 6 years now. And as an artist, my mission is to connect to and uplift the community through original works of art. And I like to do fun, joyful, sort of simple imagery that's layered with symbolism and storytelling. And that started from visiting schools in the JCPS region through the Kentucky Museum of Art and Crafts. I was an artist in resident, and I would go into schools. And that's kind of how I got into murals. And then those spanned into larger public art pieces. I'm going to show you guys a couple of those. But I love how public art is about storytelling and creating a sense of place, collaboration, and interaction with the pieces. And they kind of take on a life of their own once they're on the street. And that's what inspires me, you know, to do what I do. So Grant, if you don't mind showing this first photo, and I'm going to describe it for our guests as well. This is the Nulu Wildflower mural. That's the title. And this is a project that was facilitated by LVA in 2017. Oh, sorry, Grant, wrong photo. There we go. Thank you. The description for this photo is a painted mural in the Nulu district that consists of 20 to 30 foot high, sprawling, interwoven Kentucky wildflowers such as mint, goldenrod, and milkweed in bright and highly contrasted colors on a bed of bluegrass. I'm often inspired by vintage illustrations, and this was kind of an example of that vibe. I'm standing in front of the wall under a bloom that's about 5 times my height. The largest bloom hovers above the shop's door frame and signage. And Grant, you can remove that if you don't mind. Thank you. So this project, as I said before, it came about as I was doing family walks along Frankfurt Avenue. We actually delivered the Clifton Quarterly to the block between Vernon and Ewing. And so I spent a lot of time walking up and down the street. And I've also spent a lot of time at the Kentucky School for the Blind through the residency program. And I've developed a really deep respect for that community. And just, I mean, I'll never stop talking about those kids. And actually, John Roberts was the principal the first year I went to the School for the Blind 8 years ago. And he said to me that I would learn more from the kids than they would learn from me. And that has always been true every year. And I still choose to do that residency anytime I possibly can because it's just such a rewarding experience. So because I've known the students for so long, I often see them navigating the streets. And that's sort of where the idea of doing a public artwork for Clifton that was inspired by our visually impaired community came from. So I was studying the Clifton neighborhood plan and I wrote a proposal in January 2019, so 2 years ago now. And I knew this project would need to be collaborative, so I kind of just set it aside. And then Grant, if you don't mind showing that second photo. So in the meantime, as this idea was sort of percolating, we had the Smoketown Mural Art Festival last fall. And this is one of the pieces from that. So I'm going to read that description. This piece is called Shared Heritage. Tucked between a 3-story historic building and an ornamental shotgun house in Smoketown, a giant pair of hands in blue tones sew together an abstracted, colorful, crazy quilt in geometric shapes, angled to direct the viewer upward to the sky. The building's unpainted historic brick occupies the negative space around the hands. The saturated colors and modern painting style create a strong contrast to the building's facades, filling the empty side wall that faces the busy Shelby Street. So a little bit about that project because it's probably the most, or close to the most similar to this one in the sense that it's an example of community input and collaboration between nonprofits. Smoketown is one of the oldest Black neighborhoods in Louisville, and there's a complex history that predates the Civil War. So this piece is sort of a combination of a lot of imagery that I was looking at and feedback that I was getting from those committees. But I included a crazy quilt with some Civil War quilting patterns. And then the image of the hands I actually drew from a photograph from the 1920s of a young Smoketown girl in a sewing circle. So Grant, you can take that one down if you don't mind. So while planning this Mural Fest, LVA was involved in that, and they hosted a workshop for artists, which I got to attend, where the Philadelphia Mural Art Program came to Louisville to do a workshop with us. And we had the opportunity to brainstorm with them. They're the leading art program in the US, or mural art program, sorry, in the US. And we brought forth this idea, and it was just confirmed immediately by both the Philadelphia Mural Art Program and Louisville Visual Art that this was an idea that would work and be a model for what we could move forward and do community art-wise, like in our city. So Katie, Grant, Keith, and then our director at the time sort of took the ball running and started brainstorming about how we could fund something like this. And that's when we were able to get in touch with the Kentucky School for the Blind Charitable Foundation. And they were able to see our vision and start that funding process. So I want to show you one more example of community input and how that can result in a public art piece. And I do realize that these are painted murals, But again, that's partially because that's the standard for what, you know, we have done here in Louisville. And we're in some ways, we're reinventing, you know, that whole concept. So bear with me. I do understand that these are painted murals. This photo is of the History of Hikes Point mural, and I'm going to read that description. A large horizontal painted mural, 20 feet high, more than 90 feet long, that spans with a central image of a clock. A starburst of triangular, colorful shapes alternate with black and white realistic panels to flood the entire wall. Moving in the clockwise position, the starburst frames out each black and white panel. The panels each represent an important era of time in the Hikes Point area and involve collaged imagery from more than 50 historic photos gathered from individuals, historical groups, social media, and photo archives. So the process for this piece, which was done in 2016, was actually brought to me by the councilman and a group called Center for Neighborhoods, and then LVA also facilitated this as well. And we had listening sessions where I interpreted and combined the values into visuals. And then we brought those sketches to stakeholders for feedback, which was interpreted into a final design, which then we began implementation involving the community. And finally a celebration at the end. And this was about a 9-month process. The end result was a Big Lots parking lot that connected to a Taco Bell was transformed into what is now a public landmark. And it's been activated in a lot of different really interesting ways that I could have never anticipated. There's been music videos that have been filmed there. I did create a curriculum, so local teachers do sometimes use this in their classrooms to explain the history of Hikes Point. And it's a favorite spot for photography as well. So Grant, if you don't mind removing that. So just in conclusion, really quick, this project, it's been very important from the very beginning to me to hear from the community. And this is just one of the ways that we, intend to do that. We're kind of starting off with some enthusiastic individuals who I know, will bear with us as we kind of work through the process of this. And I'm just really excited to be at the threshold and to see this idea come to life. I want to take this information from the meeting and use it to help us narrow down our approach. I'm looking for keywords or phrases, concepts and ideas, and then I hope to compile and assimilate some thoughts and then continue the discussion of themes and more specific details as we get into the project. So thank you all again. I'm just so excited to get to start these conversations and get impact from you. So I'm going to pass it back to Katie and Grant here.
Thanks, Liz. Really briefly, I want to just mention the PDF form that I think most of you probably received in the email with the Zoom link. I apologize if there were any technical issues there. I was trying to make it easy, but it seems like it wasn't as easy as I'd hoped for some. If you have that and you either had trouble returning it or you haven't had a chance to look at that yet, that can come to me at any time. And if it's easier to just download that PDF file and then fill it in and send it back to me as an email attachment, that's welcome at any time that you get to that. The filling in part seems to be working pretty well. It's the submission part that has been a little bit of a hiccup for some folks, and I do apologize about that. But we welcome those at any time, and those of you who already have sent them back to me, we've got them, we're compiling them, and that's our first step in what Liz was just talking about in terms of gathering keywords, ideas, pointing to people that we need to include in the conversation, etc. And with that, I'll pass it over to Katie.
Well, welcome, Elsa. I think I saw you. There you are. Thank you for being able to connect. Sorry for the trouble earlier. This is Elsa Oldham. She's also a Clifton neighborhood resident, and there's Will. Hey. So I am going to describe my role. I am the facilitator of this next portion. We have 4 segments that we'll be covering. As a facilitator, I am trained as a mediator with Just Solutions. So I will give you a structure that will help move this meeting along and make sure that we gather as much input from each of you as we can. Each segment will take about 10 minutes, and I will give prompts, and each person, if you will use the chat to indicate that you would like to speak. If you're unable to use the chat, you're welcome to let Grant know by using your voice. That's fine. So in these sections, you know, we want to prompt discussion and have, you know, everyone a moment. So please take about a minute. If you start seeing that you're taking longer than a minute, I will probably ask you to summarize in a sentence what exactly you're trying to say, and then we'll move on to the next participant. So I just wanted to lay some of those ground rules out there so we can make this as productive as we can. I hope everybody had a moment to look at the agenda. The first section that we'll be discussing in terms of this very innovative sensory accessible work is going to be multi-modality and sensory accessibility. I'm going to read out a few words, and then I'm going to let everyone be able to speak, have a chance to try to speak on those types of sensory modes that we could activate in this type of work. So some of these words are components, visually impaired artist, web content, audio, music, sound on site. So I'd like you to take a moment and think about what those things could mean to you and tell us, because this is the kind of thing that Liz is going to need to hear as she helps select people she will collaborate with, as she tries to leverage partners in the community, and to make sure that everyone is heard and wants the type of thing in their, you know, in their public space. So please indicate in the chat if you'd like to talk. Okay. All right, Terry, please. We would love to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm thinking of multimodality and audio. If we are doing a fairly two-dimensional mosaic without other sensory modalities invoked, I as a blind person will just feel a bunch of very nice feeling little differently textured shapes that are perhaps all unique and are very interesting, but I will not, unless there is another dimension to this, get the idea of what the picture is that you can depict with color and other kinds of activities. So I think that it would be wonderful if we could include audio description from the beginning in the process. And audio description is a very well-defined set of procedures and methods for describing, making the visual, verbal, and auditory. It won't take away from the art. It won't interpret the art. It will simply bring another modality. And I bet if we were creative enough, we could even involve the audio description technology in the mosaic itself. For example, certain textures of pieces might be able to be pressed as buttons to give audio description of the section of the mosaic that we're looking at. So those are just some preliminary thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And I just want to indicate this project is so at the beginning and ground level, and you are all here to help build that. There is no direction that has been chosen. This is our opportunity to work together. So things like hearing, sensory accessibility through hearing, and you know, active kinetic items, like bring it. We want to hear these sort of things. So Kristen, if you'd like to also speak, I see that you've indicated you like to talk.
Thank you. Yeah, so in preparation for this meeting, I tried to come up with some ideas that might work, especially for sensory. And I was thinking that because I work in ceramic and I know that the clay that I use can be permanently placed outside, I was thinking there could be some type of 3D relief, very strong relief that requires a lot of feel and touch and movement. And then I also thought that there's a way, I'm not exactly sure how to do this, but we could create some kind of like sound makers where the individual can use some type of instrument to either rake down the relief or something of that sort. I haven't fully formed that idea, but 3D relief for me would be a big thing, so that people can actually interact with this in any way possible. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristen. And, you know, as I hear things like noise and kinetic, tactile elements, of course, we have Sarah Lindgren here, who is the public arts administrator, who will let us know what we can and cannot do when it comes to ordinances. And I'm sure also, you know, our council person will probably let us know as well. But these are really exciting ideas. So Mike O'Leary, would you like to speak to the group?
Geez. Well, actually, I totally agree with the idea of audio description. Two things come to mind is the loudness will disturb the neighbors, especially residents. But also, I'm just wondering, will you utilize language in addition to English? What I'm thinking is Spanish or whatever. And God knows I don't want to blow up the thing becoming too complicated, but that's just something that came off the top of my head. That's all.
We'll definitely put that as a pin to go back to, and then as we get input from the community, we can see what is the most relevant. But thank you, Mike. That's a really good point. Carla, you indicated you'd like to talk. And we're needing to get Carla's audio on for her. Thank you.
Here we go. Okay, I think I'm here now, maybe?
Yes, you're here.
Okay, good. I wanted to bring up another topic too, to put into the mix. Obviously, I would certainly agree 100% with incorporating elements so that audio description could be part of the entire thing. But from the standpoint of the content, the information that's presented in the mural, I would like to very much see it be a visual representation of the history of Clifton. When you go back to the 1800s, 1850s, 1840s, there's a lot of history around, not just with the School for the Blind and the printing house, but many other aspects of the community as well. And I'm very, very much interested in, of course, the history of the blind and visually impaired, but also just in the history of this whole area. So that would be one of the things that I would like to see incorporated as topics and content.
Thank you, Carla. And that actually brings us to the next topic point. So you made a brilliant segue. The next topic is content and imagery and design. And some of the things we listed in the agenda is blind community celebration and recognition of, you know, things that were challenges or possibly things that were really triumphs for the community over these, 100 years or so. The other thing to consider is the Clifton history and current identity and how we interpret that through the content. And I'm sure a lot of people have a lot to say about this. I'll also indicate that Sarah Lindgren has given a link called Braille for Everyone. So I hope people take that down and use that later on. So I'm opening the floor to talk about content, imagery, design, and that can also include sound and how it's, content is described through sound or music. Well, I'm sure, Bill, you have a lot to say about content. Come on.
I've seen murals from Chemainus, Yakima, Nanaimo, British Columbia, a few in Europe. And usually there's something that's directly related to individuals or pioneers in the area as a content item somewhere along the line in the thing. So I really feel that that kind of identifier and linkage to today is something that is very worthwhile. And so it's also an area that gets into a lot of discussion and sometimes some controversy in terms of what you put in, who you put in. But I look at, as an example, I take visitors up to the museum and with the in the printing house, and they are staggered by some of the things that they see there. And when I looked at, as example, on the first topic, the encyclopedias that are put up out there, and there are a number of other items that are historic for the world, as well as for here in Clifton. Those are three-dimensional items that could also have a sound associated with them. So that's a content item, but at the same time, it has direct implications for the history of this area. And when I think in terms of having moved here, 20 years ago, and seeing the population in the area, walking with the dogs and the like, that again is something that strikes people who may not have been here before or who are visiting on Frankfurt or the like. So those are the kinds of things in terms of imagery that you can see in different places. At the same time, there's a cautionary note in, I think it was in Idaho Falls. They were recognizing the people that were using American Sign Language, and they made a mistake in a whole wall. So, hey, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Local, but also the important features that kind of have identified with this community and should identify with the community. I've been struck in the past, and I'm past my 1 minute. When they had the conferences at the Galt House, and at the time my wife was working in an office at the Galt House with family literacy, and people coming in from all over the country and into that, and it enlightened us in terms of what the situation is. And again, those are the kinds of things that one can also talk about, reaching out to the broader community, that it has an impact to the United States. So anyway, said enough.
Thank you. I knew I could rely on you. So Terry has her hand up, and I'd like to give her an opportunity. And I do also want to mention before she speaks, Carla had a brilliant idea on the phone. And Carla, if people don't know her, which I'm sure everyone in the Clifton community does, she's one of the biggest advocates, not only for Kentucky, but nationally, for the blind community and people who have low vision. So I just wanted to say that. But she opened our minds in terms of what this project could be and the longevity if we included web elements that also help advocate for groups that she and others that she's involved with that are interested in. So anyhow, I just wanted to make that note. Terry, please.
When I think of content, I think of things that bring that, no, they don't bring them together. That content that recognizes the fact that the blind community, although it certainly does have some unique aspects, is an integral part of the web of community. I think that to me, the remarkable thing about being blind, and there is one, just as it's the same remarkable thing about being human, is that we can join together with different views and different ideas and be part of progress in a positive way. Blind people have been employed. Schools for the blind back in the historical, when they were younger, did a lot of more focus on vocational aspects. Blind people have worked in all kinds of fields. And I think what we do, showing what we do, is so much more important than how we do it. I think we do need someone with a cane, because that's one very solid means of blind mobility. I think we might need someone with a guide dog. That's another. We might need someone holding someone's arm doing the human guide method of travel. But what these people need to be doing is not just walking down the street. They need to be doing things that give you the aha, they're like us. Doing things that sighted people do in employment, in leisure, in recreation, in education, and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you, Terry. I cannot stress enough the inclusivity and sensory accessibility being such a key element in this project. And the fact is that we can even maybe have 3 sites. Like there is a lot of options here, so that can be a walking tour of different areas. So I just wanted to also note that. I know Michelle had her hand up at one point, and then I'll get back to you, Terry, if you raised your hand again. But Michelle, you had raised your hand moments ago. You're on mute. One moment. Grant, could you unmute her? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
No, I was just agreeing with what everyone had said. I think making it also interactive, even maybe beyond hearing and touching, if there's like they were saying, like things that you could move or run your fingers through that would help, create a noise, just things like that. Because I know kids, whether visually impaired or blind or even sighted, they love interaction, as do adults. Mm-hmm. So just, ways, maybe some unique ways to people can actually not just touch the wall, but, actually interact with it. And I think when you mentioned, having it, via the web too, that's another way to take it to the next level of interaction. Mm-hmm. But I think that's key.
I'm gonna throw something out. I'm not trying to, take advantage of my position here with the LVA side behind me, but I hadn't thought about this until I heard the conversation right now. But I'm imagining something like Tibetan prayer reels that can roll and maybe make a sound or be a way to engage as a model, not necessarily in terms of their religious and ethnic connotations, but rather just in their terms of their form and function as a way of getting at some of the things that people are talking about. But the other thing I'd like to just reflect back as a sighted person, as Terry was talking about, imagery that would depict blind folks with a cane, with a guide dog, with a human guide, but doing things that connect them to the human endeavor. That really landed with me, because I think, I'm surveying, my memory of those kinds of images that I've seen, and too often, that an image of a blind person is sort of disconnected from everything else that's happening, and it's presented as if it's somehow isolated from the world, and that's really problematic. And I really appreciate Terry's perspective and insight there. So that really landed with me, and I think that's an important guidepost for us.
Yeah, and Grant, just to jump on that really quick, one of the original goals that I had for this project was also to make it really clear to those going through the Clifton neighborhood, coming from St. Matthews or coming from downtown, that this is a special neighborhood, and that we have a population here that's unique. And I love the idea of having some imagery that makes that really, really clear, even from the street, you know, just from a pure pedestrian standpoint, it could send a powerful message of like, you know, we have a special pedestrian group of people here in our neighborhood. Slow down. That's just a little side note, but I'm loving all these visuals and taking so many notes, and I'm just gonna hand it back over.
Well, and we appreciate the last topic and us talking about content and imagery and design, all of which is very important. And again, if you have anything that comes up in your mind or you want to reach out, there will be an email that we will put in the chat, and we will also put it through an email to each of you after this meeting. But I'd like to move on to the site selection topic. And I know that this one could be a really big topic, but the purpose of this meeting is just to get maybe some general insight on what sites are appropriate and that are inclusive enough for people to be able to access. That is a big point for people who are blind, low vision, and who can see. We want it to be accessible by everyone. And then also, you know, we want to make sure that if you have specific locations, you can always email those to us. But we're not going to get too specific just yet. And then Sarah Lindgren added in the discussion that a tactile map to highlight the influence of APH and KSB and other groups across the nation. So, and if anybody has any thoughts on sites, and I know Carla probably has some insight on what is considered accessible, and Terry as well, but others, please chime in if you have some ideas of what kind of thing would be an ideal place for people to come and interact with this like multi-modality work. Rob, would you please? Yes. Grant, will you unmute him? Thank you.
One thing I want to mention, and Bill had said it very articulately earlier, I do believe that this particular project has a very strong national reach. And that being the case, that we get a lot of groups regionally, and I do mean the Midwest, the South, and the Northeast, who come to visit on bus tours here to Louisville, but they also make a stop, which is slightly out of their way, to the American Printing House, and we tour them. One thing I might want to mention is that if we do select an area, if there is an area selected, is that it be a little bit easier to access for folks who are coming in. And that would include not only older adults, who are typically the folks who are in bus tours, but also school children, because we also get, we have roughly 9,000 people in a normal year who come through on tours to APH. Half of those are students, and they're learning about accessibility. And one of the things I think is going to be pretty amazing is to see students who are learning about diversity and inclusion in something as magnificent as a mural, especially if it's interactive, and especially if there's touch, especially if there's other elements as well. It ideally should be a place that people can access. You know, it might be less ideal if they have to go through a parking lot and then go up an alley to do this. So it's just something to think about. You might want to think about how traffic flow works, but I do believe that you'll get people for sure from all around and not just in Louisville.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Brad, if you would unmute yourself, thank you.
Yeah, I got it. So I obviously see this as the bigger pieces that Liz has been doing throughout Louisville, but I love the idea of maybe stumbling across something like this, sort of these magic moments that a sighted person gets to take advantage of, you know, whether it's like a crocheted branch of a tree or a little tag on the bottom of the sidewalk that, you know, we just stumble across as we're walking our dog or doing whatever it is that we're doing. I don't know what that looks like for a visually impaired person, come across a gate that has a lot of bells that if you walked by and just kind of ran your hand along, I'm thinking like very Amelie-esque, just little tiny moments that could happen that make the day a little more magical.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that finding joy in life, especially now, is so hard, that having these unexpected things that are the segue of, you know, not just human experience and recognition of people and who are stakeholders in the community, but also fascinating different, how do we get, you know, sound and you know, texture and things that are maybe we don't pay attention to as part of this, and easy to actually interact with. So thank you, Brad. Does anybody else have any idea about site selection and how we make sure it's the right types of sites? I don't know if anybody else has anything.
Hello?
All right, Mike, was that you?
Yeah, that was me, Michael Leary. Off the top of my head, the first place that came to mind was Fred Banks Commons, which is actually 1824 Frankfurt Avenue, which is the green space directly in front of UCHM, United Crescent Hill Ministries. The property is owned by, used to be New Visions, it's now New Directions Housing. If you're familiar with the corner of State Street and Frankfurt Avenue in front of UCHM, United Crescent Hill Ministries, it's a green space which actually has a fence and a line. It's open to the public. And interestingly, a little side note for as neighborhood history is, it used to be the property of the old Franklin Elementary grade school. And it used to be the so-called playground, which was actually asphalt. But when that property was divided, thanks to Mayor Armstrong, and at the time, I believe it was Alderwoman Tina Ward Pugh, when the properties were divided into three entities, the one entity, New Vision, which is now New Direction Housing, they built the apartments there, the red brick apartments. And I've been told, and they were using HUD money, and I've been told that they actually, HUD paid for the green space, the green area, which was very unusual, as I've been told. But the reason that they were the people who put in the application is the buildings originally, the apartment buildings, were originally designed or meant to be for visually impaired residents. So they were able to convince HUD to provide green space for the working dogs of the visually impaired. So it's one of these neighborhood sidelines that the reason that we've got this beautiful green space that's really well put together is because somebody, some bureaucratic knew the proper way of putting something into the grant. But that was my first thought. And also, if we could have some type of wonderful relationship with United Crescent Hill Ministries, UCHM, so that, and this is where I'm not so subtle, but so when people come to visit, they would actually have access to bathrooms. That's just me. But anyway, so that's one of my suggestions. The other suggestion would be at the corner of Keats and Frankfurt Avenue, which is where the parking lot is at close to Irish Rover. If you know, they've removed the ATM there, and also there's a drinking fountain there, and it's the property is owned by the Louisville Metro. So also I need to segue into my other question with my neighborhood hat on, is how long do you expect for this mural to be there? Hopefully, I'd love for it to be there for generations. But what I'm thinking, if it goes onto private property, and the email I sent to Grant, I actually provided 6 specific locations. But my thought was, if you do it on private property, with the value of the property is such that maybe a few years down the road, that property might be sold. A good example for that is what used to be the community garden on Payne Street. At the property of Sacred Heart Village, or actually it's Nazareth Home. But when we created the garden 15 years ago, we were hoping to be there for a long time. We're actually there for 11 years, or excuse me, 10 years, but the property is going to be developed. So on one hand, it was way cool that we're able to use private property. On the other hand, that's the thing that you need to be concerned. And then the other thing that with my neighborhood had is the liability. God, unfortunately, I turned into quite the bureaucrat, but whenever I see something, I worry about, well, if somebody got hurt on the property, who's going to be held liable? And my idea of the mural is such that I'm hoping that it will be tall and wonderful and the like. And if a kiddo would climb and fall, or if it got the wind blew it over, who's going to be held responsible for that? And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean it in a good sense of business. So that's my contribution. I've got my fingers crossed for the Fred Banks Commons, the green space in front of UCHM, especially since it's owned by New Direction Housing. I think that would be a wonderful partnership because they are in fact a nonprofit, and also I hope that as we move forward that we're going to get United Custom Hill Ministries to be involved. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what valid points, particularly the one about it being privately owned and could be destroyed if someone decided to buy a new owner, decided to buy the property. And I actually had a community project here in the Portland neighborhood that experienced that within a year. So we will definitely, I'm like a hawk with this exact concept that you're talking about. So Carla has her hand up and I'd like to give her the floor. Could you unmute yourself? Yes.
Yes. Well, I'm real glad to hear that you certainly are familiar with the problems that can be created with private property. Clifton's been down that road a number of times, and it's an exercise in frustration. So that's a real valid point. I want to just say that I was associated at the time in a couple of different ways with the New Vision project when those apartments were being created and built. And I really would strongly second Mike's comments on the State Street, the UCHM location. I think that's an area where many people from many different aspects, many different walks of life, go in and out there all the time. I think it would be a very good idea to get them involved early on if that happens to be one of the locations that we want to truly look at.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you. And we will definitely consider that. I saw your hand up, Bill. Yes?
I don't know how this will work in, but I look at that great big wall that's over there on the printing house. And one of the things that a former colleague of mine has a brother who's an artist in neon. And I've been through a couple of places where there were neon tubes, and kids when they moved their hands to the neon tubes, they were different colors and different sounds, pardon me. And it got an interactive thing going. And so I was looking at that wall, and you mentioned, Katie, I believe that there could be multiple sites for this kind of thing.
Yes.
So a way of attracting attention, it might mean some landscaping, but if you have people walking along a wall and the different neon tubes, and I know that that's cited, but when the colors, when you pass your hands over them, the sounds change and it's a melody kind of thing. Again, a way of attracting attention to something else that might be a mural for that area. It seems to me that that is a wall, or the walls there are aching for some kind of thing like that that can attract attention. So having seen that in a number of places and seen it become waterfalls or whatever, but it was the musical kind of thing that went in that goes along with what Grant was saying about Tibetan prayer wheels. And only this is in a different way. I was surprised to see that it was neon lights that were doing this. And that would mean a protection. And I don't know about the details, but still it attracts a lot of attention. And that's one of the keys that I think you need to think about in this whole business.
Definitely, while being respectful to people's, you know, whether it's bright or whether it's sound or whatever it is, we will make sure to navigate what those levels should and shouldn't be as we explore it. And then the other thing I will say, as you mentioned APH, as we traverse this, one of the most important and the things that you guys can definitely help us with is the dynamics between groups and what is going to be the best sites for multiple people to enjoy. And so I just wanted to also say that that's something that's on our minds. So I'm going to wrap up the site selection discussion unless, Carla, I don't know if that's a new hand you wanting to speak or if it was from the previous comment. Carla, did you want to speak again? Okay. I think it must have been from the previous one.
Yeah, it was a previous comment.
All right, no problem. Thank you. So wrapping up this meeting, one, I wanted to say on behalf of LVA and on behalf of Liz, because I'm sure she would echo this, that we are absolutely thrilled that each of you showed up to contribute. And this is not the last. There will be another session. We also encourage people contacting us. We can have separate meetings. It does not have to be this one shot where, you know, you feel like you didn't even get to talk. I also wanted to say that we will have an exit survey. It won't be today, but it will be coming within the next 2 weeks or so where you can give additional input and we'll be giving some prompts.
Katie, I'm gonna just jump on there real quick. Since we're doing another session in February, I think what we've thought about is we'll probably let that be more like this one that we'd sent this time. So like as we get ready for that meeting, maybe we'll give you a little bit more lead time for the February one, just so that you're not seeing too many prompts for asking you to look at a form and fill it out. But we'll let sort of people have a time to percolate with this meeting and whatever comes out of it. And then we'll solicit some more feedback before we have our session in February. Does that sound? I think that's what we had discussed. And I don't want to freak people out that you're going to get like tons of emails asking you to fill something out. We're going to do one. We're going to do one more. That's okay.
Everybody hates so Bill Hollander, if you'd like to make your question audible for everybody.
Yeah, I just had a question about what the plan would be in terms of timing for public comment and input. And I really don't know where we stand in that.
So we're considering whether or not or how we can best make the session in February open to the public. And probably one of our bigger challenges there is just how do we manage a group maybe twice this size in terms of a Zoom session or some other kind of online meeting. I think we can do it. It's not something LVA has done a lot. So we're going to take the time between now and then, or not between now and then, the next week or so, and just look at our options. I'll speak for myself. My inclination would be that I'd like to invite anybody who wants to, but I think the way for us to do that is the invested organizations that are represented here today, as well as LVA, share an invite. And one of the things, there's some details, like one of the things I'm considering as a person who would be dealing with the technical side of that is that we might have to sort of put a cap on it and open it to the public, but have a reservation system so that it's kind of a first come, first serve, 50 or 60 or how many we feel like we can actually reasonably do. I will be, getting that solidified soon, and I'll look for input from people like you, Bill, and others as we try to go forward. But I think we want to do it. We want to make it as publicly available as possible, but we also don't want it to get out of control.
I guess the other possibility is at some point, that online forms kind of services.
Yes,
which is a way, I think, it's also a way to kind of introduce the project to a broader population. Because you're right. Well, I'm very excited about this. I think most people in the community don't know anything about it.
Yeah, and we have always been imagining that the input we get today as we move forward will help us better formulate, for example, an online form that LVA could host on its website and that we could link, you guys could link to, whoever wants to link to. That could be a great way for people very quickly in a few minutes to be able to give us potentially some very valuable insight or input, possibly even maybe even upload images there or something like that. So those are all things that we're thinking about, but I really appreciate that.
That all sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Terry and Carla, I know that we would love to hear, and we will be certainly reaching out to you, what is the best way to engage other people from the blind and low vision community so that we are making sure that this next meeting specifically will go very well and be very accessible to all of you. So I just want to say that we will be reaching out to you too specifically.
And on,
Sounds good.
on that, in a more specific way, our intention, and I think it's probably not going to be able to be ready tomorrow, but early in the coming week, we are going to just have a little summary of this meeting, no more than one page, probably more like half a page, that just captures some of the key points that we'll circulate in a follow-up email, thanking you all for being here and just keeping you in the conversation. Anybody who would like that in another format, Braille or any other format, please let us know that. You'll have to email us to let us know that, but we will work to make sure that people get that summary in the form that works best for them.
Grant, can you make sure that comes out in a doc format?
DOC.
Well, DOC or DX, DOC
Okay.
or DOCX.
Okay.
You know, in a Microsoft Word document.
Yep, absolutely.
And then basically the last thing that we will mention is that once again, we are 75% through with our fundraising goal. We have raised significant funds for this project because it's that exciting for so many types of people. So, you know, we're not making any sort of ask to you specifically, but if you have people in your networks that would like to see something like this happen, please point them to us and we will reach out and reach that goal and maybe even exceed it so that we can develop really intricate web-based you know, platforms or anything that people really need and think is the most important for this kind of work. And lastly, Liz, if you'd like to say any things to wrap this meeting up, because this is definitely a large part about you.
Before Liz talks, I just want to mention we are going to try and take a group photo when Liz is finished. So don't just disappear. Don't sign off the meeting yet. If you're willing to be part of the group photo, please stick around just for a minute.
Yeah, I just want to answer a question that I saw in the comments. The question is possibly include some students from the Kentucky School for the Blind on input. And that is definitely something that I want to do. I have a great relationship with the humanities teacher at the School for the Blind, and she was actually going to be on this call up until the last minute. And we will definitely be working with the School for the Blind to get some student input as well. That's personally important to me since they were part of the original inspiration. But yes, thank you for that comment. And thank you all so much. This, you know, it's a lot to go over. I think we actually did better than I was thinking we would with the amount of content that we had to cover. So thank you all so much for your time and for your enthusiasm on this project. And again, this is just like the first step, but I've been taking so many notes and visuals are already coming to mind. And this is how the creative process for a project like this starts. So thank you all for that. I really, really appreciate your time today.